how to become a creator.
Creators have one tremendous advantage. They are masters. They'll see something and be like, ye chalega, ye nahi chalega.
You might work fast and be impatient, let's say, but long-term thinking important.
And that is the challenge with the creator economy. Every 6 months, the world changes. The world has become a lot more impatient, Ayush. And I'll give you an insight there, Ayush. It's a word called MAFA. MAFA stands for mistaking activity for achievement. There's a lot of noise out there. Dude, kya marketing, kya ye? Uspe thoda sa tum ghusoge na. So many things are khokla. Why do one take a very serious decision to? Because I don't know anybody who loves his audience the way Boman loves his audience.
Yeah, you mentioned this and I remember Shah Rukh also.
One of the greatest marketers the world has ever seen.
Yeah?
Absolutely. And we all learn from it. Why do we hail the Bachchans and the Shah Rukhs of this industry the way we do? Being an actor. It's not like I'm actor. I've had the pleasure of working with Boman Irani for many years. The man is a legend, one of the greatest actors we've had in our country. But what people don't know is that Boman is also a student of film. If anyone ever asks me what is the greatest skill, I actually believe the greatest skill is to have self-awareness. What they say about Instagram, na? Everyone's life is sexy, but that's not really true. Only guy you should be comparing anything with is the guy in the mirror.
The top 1%, the 1% have this mindset that they're driven by a purpose, they're driven by the work that they're doing. Is that something which they are born with, or is that something people can consciously build?
Yeah, my advice is...
Today in our podcast, we had Dhruv Chitgopekar, the co-founder of Collective Artist, on a podcast uncovering the truth behind Bollywood celebrities, your favorite creators, and discussing business principles which helped him build such a large business in the last 15 years of collective company existence.
To understand the media space, because
Yeah.
as you mentioned, you have been someone who went into a talent management company at in 2008, correct?
Yeah.
So 2008 to today we are at 2024, 16 years.
Yeah.
How has advertising or media industry changed from 2008 to 2013, then 13 to 18, and then 18 to 24?
Yeah, so I'll tell you, the biggest thing I've seen, Ayush, is that in 2008, when we were setting up and we were building these businesses, there was it'll amaze you to know, but there were very, very strong walls of what you could enter, where you could have conversations, especially with advertisers,
Yeah.
right? If you were, let's say, for example, you were Nestle, right? And you wanted to enter the Nestle ecosystem, there was no question of you entering that ecosystem if you didn't go through JWT or if you didn't know who the media buying agency was. I mean, the walls were so tall and they were so challenging. So sales at that point of time was like, can I just get a meeting with the brand manager? Literally. I mean, that used to be a win for us at that point of time, that mujhe bas ek conversation opportunity, and then the kind of things you had to navigate to be able to get an idea to go through, to sell a talent. It was ridiculously hard, right? As opposed to, I think 5 years down the line, the walls started to break down, right? There was an understanding that brands need to open up their ecosystems a lot more. But I think one of the key things was that the organization of advertising and the organization of brand solutioning was very, very straitjacketed. Within that straitjacketing, there was some amazing work that happened. Aisa nahi hai. But you also have to understand the mediums were
Barrier
few
to
and far
entry was
between.
high.
You had television, you had print, you had outdoor, you had BTL. That's it, right? Today, if people make a mistake if they say digital is the fifth. It's not. Digital is the horizontal that sits across all of them. Right? And they will consistently be across all of them. But every one of these traditional mediums, they can be disrupted. Because the fact is, digital is not just digital. Digital has democratized. And
Correct.
the same thing happened in the advertising world. There was no democratization. You were not equal. You had to know somebody. You had to hustle. So I think that the first thing I'll say is that I used to find that when I think of it now and I look at my sales guys today and now, the manner in which you approach solutioning, right, is vastly different. So I'll go 2008, 2013. I think that was the first big difference that I saw. I think the other piece that happened is that 2013, around that time, I think 5 years down, I think that the boom of entrepreneurship, the boom of venture capital funds coming in and starting to believe that there is a new wave of Indian consumerism that's going to come in. Because in 08, etc., it was all the big boys that ruled the roost, right?
Correct.
It was those top 40, 50 companies that really controlled the mind space of popular culture, even from a brand's perspective. But what started happening in 2000, I think maybe, 13, 14, 15, is that with the influx of capital, with the emergence of hardcore venture capital, with the covers at Fireside, and with some of these people coming in, with Sequoia opening their wings, you suddenly started to have companies come in and disrupt the status quo. You suddenly had a conversation with a Bira that could sit alongside a Kingfisher when they had been the boss dogs. You suddenly had a conversation with someone like a Boat where they could be sitting alongside a JBL or some of the big boys, and them getting attention and them being disruptive, right?
Yeah.
But people say it was all the geofication and digital. I also say it also had a lot to do with the fact that the venture capital ecosystem kind of promoted and pushed this entrepreneurial flavor, right? And I also feel like our education system doesn't get enough credit that the top institutions, the one thing you realized on the time was how big the entrepreneurial cells became. Like I have friends of mine who are founders, and they got so much support. Like I know friends of mine who got initial capital, and those institutions didn't even pick up equity. They were just like, we just want you to go and become entrepreneurs. That is someone sitting and making an institutional change 20 years ago, which has impacted our life today. I think the IPL had a huge impact because suddenly you had a disruptive format of, a cricketing generation seeing an influx of pizzazz and money and glamour and marketing and exposure the way it had not been seen before. Of course, you knew the NBA, of course, you knew the NFL, but when it happens at home, dude, it completely changes the way and scope of what you imagine, right? So I think these were all very pivotal moments for us in the entertainment industry to sit and say, we can break out of these walls. We can break out of these barriers. We don't have to be restricted by it. Obviously, you also have to have a certain amount of power. Correct. You have to have a certain amount of influence, which came from our talent representation business, which came from relationships we've built. But I think that 2008, 2013, that was one big change I started to see. I think 13 to 18, massive influx of obviously the digital ecosystem, venture capital, a lot of those decisions starting to come in the fore, and that having an impact on the way everybody in the system was talking to each other, right? Earlier, I would feel the old format was you can only talk to him, you can only talk to her. It was a very direct channel. Today, there's no such thing. Anybody can be talking to anybody as long as they have the right pitch and communication. There are no walls breaking down anybody.
Yeah.
In fact, it's the other way around. In fact, it is younger people who have fresh ideas who are being chased by the old guard saying, please come and refresh the way we're thinking, right? And that's amazing. That's where the two worlds have to coexist, right? But if I think back then to 2018 and where it's at now, I think that's when it started becoming chaotic because there was such an explosion of content, information, and a lack of structure. You then realize that, boss, you have to then go back to building structures around yourselves, but they have to be very inclusive structures. You can't sit and say कि मेरे ये talent है, मैं इनके साथ ही काम करूँगा, ये मेरे 5 brands मैं इनको पकड़ के रखूँगा, कोई किसी को कुछ पकड़ के नहीं सकता. You have to be collaborative, you have to be open. In that, your philosophy has to be, it's not my slice of the pie, it's how big is the pie. Then everybody's slice is big.
Yeah.
How big can you make the pie? And those are the business decisions you have to take, right? Can I make the pie larger, right? And that's when I think that's, putting it very simply, that's some of the evolution that I've seen.
Got it. So from my limited understanding, to clarify what you're saying is basically from 2008 to, let's say, I started making sense of the world from 2016, 17 when I got into college. 2008 to 16, it was in a way very difficult for any new random entrepreneur to come in and break doors.
Yeah.
But from what I see, like I think our generation, I wouldn't call it very easy, but the access is out there. Like if you do good work, you're out there and you will get work comparatively easily.
Absolutely.
Compared to what it sounds like, ab 2010 mein kaam kar rahe ho, mehnat kar rahe ho, but ek meeting lene ke liye itni problem ho rahi hai. And today for me, it's like just like a LinkedIn message and I'm like, I'll get a reply.
Absolutely.
I have some personal brand. So the reply is easy. I'll get a call. Kaam mile na mile, it's a later stage.
Absolutely.
So in a way, access has gotten easier. What is that word? Barriers to entry, as you mentioned, has gotten easier.
The challenge today is in everybody that I'm evaluating, I'm trying to go and understand a little bit more what is the depth of what you're trying to build. Are you in and out, or are you really trying to say, here's either a problem I'm trying to solve, here's a career I'm trying to build, here's a talent I want to grow. And that is the challenge of the creator economy because as you know, every 6 months the world changes.
Yeah.
And that's not anybody's fault, but that's the way the platforms and the capital ecosystem and everybody is sort of interacting with each other. The virtuous cycles are becoming shorter and shorter. So, because I have the benefit of time, I've usually seen stuff that tries to get built extremely fast, especially in media and entertainment. It is bound to have holes in it. I won't say it's bound to fail, but it's bound to have something which is going to fall apart. And I think that is something that we're really working towards, which is why I think it's the benefit of building an institution, which is that you are challenged with younger people coming in and pushing your thought and saying, nahi, aap thoda slow soch rahe ho, thoda tez socho, but you also be able to look back and say, listen, I can see some of these challenges coming up in what you're trying to build and how you're trying to build. So I think if you break it down, the what is not a problem. The how sometimes is a problem. And funnily enough, sometimes even the why. Because if you're building, like I really believe today, you have to do a lot of thought before you start a new idea. You really should invest in time and thought in starting a new idea because the research and data is available for you. You can't just be sitting and be like, oh, I think this idea is really going to work. I truly believe data, research, both primary and secondary, is your best friend in anything you're doing.
Yeah.
Because it will enable you to have better decision making.
So, from a user perspective, if I dumb it down, correct me if I'm wrong, basically आप ये कह रहे हो, from a business perspective, if somebody is watching this and they want to do business and they want to understand history because patterns are important,
Yeah.
is that 2008 से 16 वाला पीरियड whatever, as you mentioned, barriers to entry बहुत थे, business शुरू करना बहुत difficult था, तो power was like concentrated towards a few companies. 2016 से 24 में बहुत लोग आने लग गए, पाए थोड़ा थोड़ा बड़ा होता गया, लोग स्टार्टिंग में कोलैबोरेटिव नहीं थे, अब आई थिंक कंसोलिडेट हो रहे हैं, लोग कोलैबोरेट कर रहे हैं, बट एट द सेम टाइम बहुत एंटरप्रेन्योर्स भी आ रहे हैं, बट क्योंकि वो क्विक सक्सेस मिल रहा है या क्विक एंट्री मिल रही है, क्विक money making मिल रही है, be it creator economy, be it any industry for that matter, D2C, e-commerce, etc. People are thinking short term by design. And वो short term thinking की वजह से 3 से 5 साल वाला सोच रहे हैं कि जल्दी बनाओ बेचो. And that's where you are thinking like the old guys, like a Reliance is what you told me, that you think like a Reliance. You want to build a Reliance for creators or Reliance for media.
Absolutely.
Am I correct in saying this?
The world has become a lot more impatient, Ayush.
Yeah. I agree.
What used to be a 6-month campaign has become a 6-week campaign if you're lucky.
True. So I think my takeaway, this is very good insight for me also, is that you might work fast and be impatient, let's say, but have the long picture, जो कहते हैं long term thinking important है, long term games with long term people.
Absolutely.
उसका fundamental reason ये है कि lot of people who are actually now, आपने जो बोला ऐसा लग रहा है कि lot of people who are, I am comparing myself with, और I think अरे अच्छा कर रहा है, a lot of them will die down just because they're not facing the battle of, like, let's say, sustenance, or they're not thinking long term. वो एक साल सोच रहे हैं.
Absolutely. And I'll give you an insight there, Ayush. The thing is, the one thing that I feel is that you can marketing, for as much as I love great marketing cannot substitute actual work. Right? So there's a term that I learned in ISEC, which I love today, and my team hates me because I keep yelling, like you saying it to them constantly. It's a word called MAFA. You know what MAFA stands for? Mistaking activity for achievement. So I believe that there's a lot of noise out there. क्या marketing है, क्या ये, उस पे थोड़ा सा तुम घुसोगे ना, so many things are खोखला. So my perspective here is, and it's a point you were just trying to say, is that, oh, this one's more successful. Let's take an example of 2 entrepreneurs. Let's take you and let's take XYZ, right? XYZ might have a tremendous 2 quarters massive growth, and he's kicking your company's ass and you're in the same space, right? What is being seen is, let's say, the external part of his business. Let's assume you're both in talent and both of you are signing talent. Let's assume this guy's gone and signed 10 people. You've signed 2 people. What if you were to go a little depth and say, oh, Ayush has spent the last 6 months in just training his team and intelligently poaching the best agents from the industry and intelligently ensuring that when those guys are ready to sign, they have a robust infrastructure to make sure the talents are delivered to. What do you find? In 12 months, those clients have moved. In 12 months, this team is stronger. In 12 months, this has become a great place to work. But this is not something that gets spoken about because training people is not sexy. Marketing and, oh, I'm the fucking shit. That's like, bro, everyone wants to play that game.
I love it.
I was lucky and I realized early in life through many setbacks that that's all bluster. That's all talk. Do I compare or not? In life and in business, I say be careful when you're comparing. Because, you know, what they say about Instagram, now everyone's life is sexy, but that's not really true. Everyone's dealing with their own shit.
Correct.
Look a little deeper, understand what's happening, and don't compare. Only guy you should be comparing anything with is the guy in the mirror and asking him or her, bhai, am I being the best version of myself?
Exactly.
Baaki sab
Yeah. I know.
If anyone ever asks me what is the greatest skill, I actually believe the greatest skill is to have self-awareness. Understanding who you are. It's a version of what you were just talking about, right?
Cool. I'll switch some gear and I'll go to the celebrity economy and the creator economy. Firstly, to start off with influence, right? Like, influence is the core, I think, structure or like core characteristic of a creator or, let's say, a celebrity or anyone with power. I think if I define in terms of influence, I think that's a good measure to define a celebrity, what do you think is a core value proposition of a celebrity which gives them so much influence out there? Because there's so much responsibility which comes up with that influence, and you have worked with the biggest of the biggest celebrities in your career as at Collective. What have you noticed?
What makes them, what gives them that
Yes,
X factor
yes,
on influence?
yes.
See, I think first and foremost, you cannot deny the fact that the platforms on which celebrities get consumed, the scale of those platforms have a huge role to play in how they're perceived, right? So you have to understand that for time immemorial, until the last 10 years, the platform to consume a celebrity was actually very linked to the size of the screen on which you were seeing them.
Correct.
So if you were watching a celebrity on television, your perception of a TV celebrity was at a certain level. The moment you got up to seeing a celebrity or an actor in theater in a certain live format or a musician, that's your next level of celebrity construct, that, oh, it's a live experience, right? And that has its two parts to it. So for example, if you go and watch, at that point in time, if you went and watched Sachin play and imagine you were sitting in Eden Gardens, or imagine you were sitting at Wankhede, there's no bigger screen than that. There's no bigger experience, which is why people still argue and say that sports people are untouchable at a certain level of impact, because they're operating in a gladiator-like format, which is live, which is real, and their celebrity or superstar ecosystem is kind of on a different plane. But going back to my original point, then you went from a television actor and then you suddenly saw someone on a big screen. The big screen is the big screen. So your celebrity status was defined by how big a screen you were on, how many screens you were on, if you were a Bollywood actor or actress, or if you're a regional star actor, etc.
Correct.
And the other part of it, Ayush, is funnily enough, and this goes back to our earlier point, right, which is the amount of content we consume, right? Here's something to think about, right? If I am a massive creator, and if I am, let's say, an actor in films, I can consume my creator every single day practically free of cost. What you're paying for is your attention, right? I don't have to move an inch. From the time I wake up and open my eyes, that creator is accessible to me, every single aspect to it. However, when I want to consume my actor or the star or the celebrity from a cinematic perspective, I make multiple levels of effort to be able to see them in one way that I want to see them. I pay money for a ticket, I jump in a car or public transport, I travel to a theater, and I devote myself in a manner that is completely in a world where there's so much distraction. We are distracted every 90 seconds, sometimes even less. I have devoted 2+ hours, and if you look at the actual experience, including travel, including interval, including popcorn, I've devoted probably 4 hours to an individual. Psychologically, we are more vested because there is a certain enigma around that celebrity. I'm only consuming them a certain amount of time. Just look at it, yeah. It's a very simple fact. Why did Bhuvan take a very serious decision to go slow on YouTube when he was building his time to create excitement around Dindora and then excitement around Taza Khabar?
Yeah.
It was a very strategic decision to sit and say that, not because I don't love my audience, because I don't know anybody who loves his audience the way Bhuvan loves his audience, right? And the way he interacts with them. There is a true relationship with his audience and his community. But he was like, I need to give them something now which gets them really excited to see me on a new screen. So I've got to hold back. I've got to generate that excitement in them and say, I'm coming now to give you something that we can all be collectively proud of, right? So I think that you have to understand that it's a slightly softer aspect, but enigma and aura and a lack of overexposure also has a role to play in how much that celebrity value actually comes up. And that's where the platforms are so critical, right? So I feel like coming back to how the influence happens, and here I'm not talking about quality of work. Here I'm not talking about the intelligence of your PR game, etc. I think those are all very, those are moves that you have to make and you have to surround yourself. I'm just talking about the sheer psychology of it, कि मैं ना टिकट के पैसे दे रहा हूँ और मैं जा रहा हूँ किसी को कंज्यूम करने, एज अपोज टू ये मुझे बंदा हर रोज मिलेगा, मेरे को हर रोज पता होगा इसके साथ क्या है. उसकी अपनी वैल्यू है, उसकी अपनी जेन्युइनली वैल्यू है, बिकॉज यू फील अ लेवल ऑफ रिलेटेबिलिटी. right? That has an impact on different things. Maybe if a celebrity today says, I'm consuming this particular product, you're like, dude, I know this is a transaction. But when you see a creator do it, because you're so invested in their life, their home looks like a home that could be your home. Their car looks like be a car you could drive. Their boyfriend or girlfriend looks like someone that you could potentially date. Suddenly you're less like, oh wow, man, I think I could feel this. So I know that when he's talking about this product or this service or this experience, I could also do it. So that has its own impact. But you spoke specifically about the power of influence. I think that there, if I was to put it in one line, I think there is still impact of less is more.
Exclusivity, it's what it feels like.
Less is more, exclusivity, bang on, right? If you look at Hollywood and look at some of those spaces, the massive stars, they'll come in and be active on social media around the time of a film release.
Yes.
They'll be active on PR around the time of a film release. If they're not doing that, they're either working on their craft or they're in very, very private ecosystems which are not touchable because they need that time to also refresh their creative energies, right? There must be some merit to it.
True.
There must be some
Yeah,
merit to
you
it.
mentioned this, and I remember Shah Rukh also, like whenever he has a movie coming in, he'll be active on Twitter. He'll do those questions, Q&A and all that.
Possibly one of the greatest marketers the world has ever seen.
Yeah?
Absolutely. I mean, marketing genius, right? Really understands his audience, really understands the, how to leverage the brand that he's built. And the brand that he's built is ultimately of the, in the world of archetypes, he is the lover archetype, right? He creates pure joy and love and charm in audiences and in interactions. And he's been able to magnify that in the most incredible way possible. But really understands it, and he knows how to play that up at the right time, right? And for all of us who have sat as industry insiders and studied it, we're still amazed as to how he gets it so often right in the moves that he makes, not just on screen, but whether it's acquisitions, whether it's partnerships, whether it's anything that he does. Like my favorite example is, dude, like Aryan launched Diavol. And there was a apparel line that came with it, and he just came in one image in that Diavol, and that like absolutely blew up. But it was just intelligence of how to leverage a marketing moment in a way that Shah Rukh hadn't been consumed before, in a very rugged, very edgy kind of look. And it's just, marketing genius, man. Like we could all learn from that. We could all learn from that.
And I have a question from a 20, 25-year-old perspective. You mentioned a very interesting thing about the mindset, right? Like the top 1%, the 1% have this mindset that they're driven by a purpose, they're driven by the work that they're doing.
Yeah.
Is that something which they are born with, or is that something people can consciously build? Like for example, a 23-year-old today might be thinking, ठीक है भाई ध्रुव सही बात है, but मेरे को भी पैसे चाहिए because that's my basic requirement at the moment. Once I do this, then I'll think about it.
Yeah.
So can somebody move from that short-term mindset to a long-term mindset? Like
understand that the most powerful scientific principle of growth in anything is one word:
time.
compounding.
Compound.
Everything is compounding.
Yeah.
So what you've got to understand is that if you take short-term decisions and they don't have a compounding effect, what is a bad short-term decision? I'm going to jump jobs every 4 years and keep getting 30% raises to get my salary to where it wants to go. Fantastic. In 4 years, you'll double your salary. Right? In 4 years, you would have doubled your salary, which doesn't happen in normal corporate places. You don't double your salary in 3 to 4 years, right? Unless you're absolutely outstanding.
Correct.
Or you've reached a level of growth in management, etc. But jump jobs, short-term decision, right? There's nothing compounding about randomly jumping jobs. No compounding. You're going to have an impact later because every time you start a new role, you re-understand the organization. You re-establish your brand internally. You re-understand the systems in which you're working. You re-understand and attach yourself to a project that has a meaningful long-term impact on the org you're working in. You do that 4 times over. You've lost not 4. You've potentially lost 8 years.
Correct.
Because if you had stayed where you were in the start and built that compounding effect, you'd already be 5 years ahead of the next one. Now,
I agree.
There are caveats. If the place is shit, boss is an asshole, pardon my language, all of that, please by all means change. But here's what you're trying to say, right? मुझे पैसे और चाहिए. तो मेरे को पता है मेरा ये hack है. मैं यहाँ से निकल सकता हूँ. चलो, let's talk about other tangible. You know what? मैं ना side में, I'm going to do a hell lot of investing in the stock market while I'm working. Every day I'll just give 2 hours quietly. Nobody will get to know. I'm talking to my broker. मैं markets में बैठ के I'll earn that money and I'll do my job on the side. Short-term decision, make money. They understand. 90 minutes every single day, Monday to Friday, taken away, may seem like a small thing. When you compound that, even over 3 months, And it's not just 90 minutes. It's also that you're compartmentalizing out of
Yeah.
meaningful work and
Context
relationships you're
switching.
building at work every single day. Short-term decision makes you more money. Long-term decision, you're not going to grow. You're not going to grow. Is that smart? Now, I'm not going to sit and knock any 23-year-old that says, bro, great, big deal, तूने किया होगा, मुझे तो ये करना है. There's so many questions about topics about moonlighting and second hustle and side hustle. Great, do it. But are those decisions that are compounding? You want to do a side hustle? Do a side hustle that makes you better at your core job. Right? Learn a new skill. Go out and, if you're in the business, go out and teach something that allows you to become a better communicator, which then allows you to give better communication presentation internally, gets you to more leadership positions internally. You understand? Is the decision you're taking to make a tactical thing come true also part of compounding?
Correct.
Simple. That should be the answer to any 23-year-old, 25-year-old sitting who's listening to this right now. That's a lens that you should put in. Is it a hard decision? Yes, it is. Nothing great in life.
It's a mindset decision.
It's a mindset decision.
About
It is about
control.
how am I doing something that's allowing me to grow in the direction I want to grow in. अब वो growth तो हर बंदे का अलग है ना. कोई बंदा बोलेगा भाई मुझे नहीं चाहिए.
Got it. Cool. Now, going back to the celebrity creator discussion, creators today are everywhere. And before I use this question as a segue to the creator economy, there's a big debate which is going on. And I personally think this coexistence, but like the creators are overpowering the celebrity market. Like the top 2%, 5% celebrities, of course, there.
Yeah.
But like the top 5% of the creators are taking away the rest 95% of the actor market. They're getting into movies. Lot of not celebrity creators, but like creators with like a lot of creators with 2 million, 3 million followers are getting into movies and all that. What's your take on it? Because you are someone who are in a power position in both these ecosystems.
See, I think that when talking about the film industry itself, I think the fact of the matter is that you're going to have, see, the truth is, Ayush, because I've been around this long, before creators, right, a big influx of people coming in and taking work from the traditional Bollywood ecosystems was actually the modeling fraternity. A lot of young women would enter the industry through the best modeling agencies in the country. Nobody was questioning at that point of time saying, oh, models are coming and taking away the aspect. It's the same. It's just what is the entry point? What has happened now today is that creators are being able to come and showcase their skill in a particular way. They obviously have, I think distribution now is not as important as what it was maybe even 2 years ago, right? Producers and casting agents, etc. They're happy to see good distribution, but they want to see capability. So I can tell you as someone who is part of many casting conversations, right? Ultimately, people want to see, boss, are they a good fit for the role? Have they worked on themselves to be a good fit for what they have to do? Are they physically, mentally, emotionally, and obviously for on screen, do they have what it takes to meet what that role demands? And let me tell you, being an actor, because we're talking about acting, it's not like aaj main subah uth ke main actor ban gaya. Bro, the kind of work that goes in, acting classes, grooming classes, speaking classes, diction classes, fitness, nutrition, dude, it's like becoming the Leonardo da Vinci man if you want to actually be on screen at a certain level. Forget on screen, if you want to do theatre, dude, you have to have a level of mental and physical capability that is not normal. It is really par excellence, and you have to have a lot of discipline. So people are taking it for granted that creator hai to actor ban gaya, you may get one role, you may get two roles, but if you don't actually work on your craft, you're not going to get it. So creators have just become a very powerful new funneling system to find new talent. The best casting agents in collective, outside collective, the best producers, the best directors, the best people who are packaging films, they're still looking for quality. Whether that's a creator or not is secondary. Just because you're a creator, you're not going to land a role. It's not going to happen. No, if it wasn't creators, let me tell you, there'd be other people. It just so happens that that's the medium through which they're coming. It used to be modeling, it used to be other areas. Now it's the creator economy. So that's how I see it. And I don't believe that just because you're a creator, you're going to land a role. You're going to land a role if you have the quality and the capability. The fact that you're a creator and you have distribution, it gives you a slight edge. It's not the entire meat. That's the truth.
There was a short-term period where I was hearing from a lot of creators that, this person or this producer or this casting agent is reaching out to us because we have X number of followers. That might have been the case in a very small, like 3 months, 6 months short-term period, but in the long term, the fact of the matter for all the creators out there is that you have to work on your craft simultaneously. And that has to be your P0.
Absolutely.
And distribution is just an add-on on your CV.
I mean, let's look at, again, I go back to it, and let's look at the best example of a creator who's cracked the content game in an initial phase, which is Bhuvan, right?
Yeah.
If anybody thinks that Bhuvan has gotten Dindora and has got Taza Khabar and is going to release Taza Khabar 2 and did the stuff he did on on Amazon, etc., because of his following, they're grossly underinformed.
Yeah.
Bhuvan has got there because Bhuvan and his team and Rohit have surrounded themselves with great quality writers. He has built relationships with producers early on in his career. People should go and watch a short film that Bhuvan and Rohit made with Guneet.
The army thing.
Yes. Right?
Minus
Which
plus
one
minus.
exactly. And it was the first, and it was one of the first
Yeah.
people, forget creators. It was one of the first people in the industry who didn't take a gutsy call like that and make a short film, which was so loved. But he's been preparing that craft and preparing that network and putting himself out there and surrounding himself with great quality writing. Of course, he also has an eye for writing, also has an eye for great content. But it has nothing to do with his following.
Yeah.
The fact that he had 35 million on YouTube is great, but the truth is, Bhuvan doesn't really leverage that for his content anyway. He believed always that, bro, for my quality of the work that I put out, I'm going to get that exposure. I see that as a great case study. I have many top creators who are from the same OG level, who I use some part of that playbook and say, guys, let's focus on the craft. Your following and what you've built in short format content is a great edge. It gives you a certain understanding. What I believe, okay, I'll tell you what I believe, Ayush. I believe that creators have one tremendous advantage, that they have minimized the concept of a feedback loop. What used to take a long time to understand कि क्या होता है, creators को ऐसे बदल जाता है. They are masters. They'll see something and be like, ये चलेगा, ये नहीं चलेगा. Bro, it's like sitting with geniuses. It's like sitting with someone who has a crystal ball in their head.
Yeah.
But they've become so attuned to seeing something and being like, fuck, ये ऐसे कर दे, ऐसे चल जाएगा. Dude, that's crazy. That's a skill set that's absolutely mad. Like, I had the pleasure of working with someone like Nick, right? And I've seen Nick reinvent himself. Dude, the guy's insight when he's doing situational comedy, it's fucking insane. I've been seeing it for 5 years. It still blows my mind how he does it in short 10-second situations. Right there on the spot, like, isko aise kar de, see what happens. It's crazy, but that comes with constant feedback loop. They've seen so many people saying,
Pattern
fuck all
recognition.
hai. So many people saying, ye sahi hai. They listen, they attribute, they keep it in the back of their mind.
Yeah.
They apply it the next time. So I believe that that's a tremendous skill set. But remember what I was saying earlier. How deep does that go? Anybody who thinks they can write a 90-second reel has the ability to naturally convert it into a mini series, bullshitting themselves. It's a very different skill set, bro. You see the best writers in the country, and you see the level of craft and the time and the training that they put them through is crazy. I'll give you a piece of input, right? I've had the pleasure of working with Boman Irani for many years. I've been his agent for, very few people know this because neither of us talk about it, but I've been his agent for now, I think for 10 years, right? And it's Boman Irani. Like, the man is a legend, one of the greatest actors we've had in our country.
Yeah.
But what people don't know is that Boman is also a student of film. Like, a student of film. So I remember very early in our career, in my time with him, I had moved to Bombay and we started working together. I remember sitting with him and either we went for a film together or he told me to go watch one film that had come out on a Friday and I went, came out. And he asked me, he said, Dhruv, how's the film? And I said, Yaar, Boman, the first half was kind of dull. But, second half, the thing really picked up. I can't repeat what he said to me because we have hopefully a family audience, right? Because the galis I got that day was unimaginable. And he's like, don't fucking ever come to me and tell me first half खराब थी, second half अच्छी थी. एक ना स्टोरी की नैरेटिव होती है. पहले तो तू अपने आप को एजुकेट कर कि वो नैरेटिव क्या होती है. So I was taken aback. I said, नैरेटिव मतलब आप स्टोरी की बात कर रहे हो ना. You're basically saying कि होता है. He said, भाई स्टोरी में ना एक फ्लो होता है कि आपने कैरेक्टर्स को इंट्रोड्यूस किया, आपने फिर कैरेक्टर्स को एक कॉन्फ्लिक्ट दिया, फिर वो कैरेक्टर्स और कॉन्फ्लिक्ट से निकल के आते हैं, वो आर्क से उसका क्या होता है, फिर एंड में उनका रिडेम्पशन होता है. हर स्टोरी का एक पूरा आर्क होता है और तू जब स्टडी करेगा फिल्म को तू समझेगा कि सारे ग्रेट फिल्म्स की एक आर्क होती है, क्योंकि दैट्स द वे दैट यू एंटरटेन इन अ 90 to 120 minute format. And then he gave me books. There's a book called Bell the Cat. There's a book called Save the Cat. I'll get the exact words for you, but you must find it and say, but very short books, but they are the fundamentals to understanding the concept of script writing and storytelling, right? Now, the point I was trying to make, right, is that this is the level of detailing and this is the level of study that goes in when you're understanding how it goes. Boman Irani is going to have a film that's coming out very soon. It's a beautiful film centered around fundamentally a father-son relationship. People won't understand Ayush, but Boman has been working on that film soon after I met him for 10 years. And out of those 10 years, Boman, Ayush, let me tell you, he's been writing and rewriting that same film for practically 8 years. And when you see that film when it comes out, you may just walk around and be like, yaar, bada maza aaya. But us yaar, bada maza aaya mein na, jo cheezein gayi hain, jo nuance gaya hai, it will blow your mind. And when you find out who he was writing it with, I mean, it's crazy. I'm just taking his example because it's the closest that I've seen right now. But all the great talent I've worked with, there's a depth that they get into on their craft. Musicians, they identify every single transition of that 45 minutes on stage down to its last intricacy. मैं कब crowd के पास वहां जाऊंगा, वो light उस पे कब reflect करेगी, when are you going to drop the bass pedal and hit that thing, when are we going to have lights out, how are we going to introduce the next song? I mean, you'd think it's 6 songs that you've come and performed. Fuck no. Why do people go for hours and hours before a concert and do tech riders and do all that? It's not just to sing a guitar baj raha hai. It is a performance that has been scripted and developed to make sure that you, Ayush, Shukla and the audience are feeling that goosebump energy. It doesn't come just because the guy is a great singer.
Correct.
It comes because a fucking team has sat for months and constructed that experience to make sure that you leave feeling a sense of wow. That's why the entertainment industry is as incredible as it is, right? And every single screen. So when I look at creators and when I look at talent, I see that. Because I'll also tell you, when they come and interact with me, they will get that from me. I will go into the depth of what I think is going on with them, both good and bad. That's the same thing I expect from when I'm working with talent. What is the depth in which you're going into to create what you want to create? And the fact is, today's day and age is not built for that. Today's day and age is built for, dude, bada maza hai, mere ko ek joke aaya, maine reel bana diya. And wo reel ke fucking 2 million shares ho gaye. Amazing, I'm not going to knock it. But I'm trying to understand, how does that become a broad-based ecosystem, right? And that's what will become an institution. That's what will become something that goes on hopefully for a little period of time and becomes exciting. And how do you build around it?
Yeah, I mean, you brought a very good point of the depth as well, and you mentioned this twice or thrice, and I also have this here, that depth versus shallow content.
Yeah.
Like in my limited 3.5 years of experience in the industry, what I've seen is that 2020, 2021, after the pandemic, when Instagram Reels came in, there was no creators as such beyond the first generation, right? Like all the Prajaktas and Ranveers of the world. And then there was an influx of creators coming in who suddenly gained like 100k followers, 500k followers in 6 months, 1 year. And then last 1.5 years, you see a lot of them dying. And you don't even talk about them. You don't even remember them that they have died, right? So the framework, or what I've realized, is that if I think about it, anybody creating content during 2021, just because they're creating content out there on the internet, will get followers.
Correct.
Because there's nobody else creating content.
Correct.
Today, there is so many creators creating content in every niche possible that you have to have depth. If you do not have depth, you might get 100k followers, 200k followers in like 3 months.
Absolutely.
And then you're not doing anything.
So true.
And even with my talent acquisition team, the growth team who onboards talent, they'll show me these sort of 300k followers. And I'm like, okay, 300k followers, but what is the content? Where he doesn't even know what personal finance means. He's just like a random 20-year-old who has 300k followers.
Correct.
Great work, good work, but not relevant in the long run.
So
shallow content.
Yeah.
So it does not make sense.
Yeah.
And that's like one of the shifts, like, which is happening. If you want to be creative today, and that's a segue, we want to talk to you about how to become a creator. And we already discussed one thing, that you have to go into content creation not because of FOMO, but because you actually are, let's say, passionate about one topic and have depth in that. And then you go on, chase that.
Now let's assume you're just there to make them smile and have fun. Great.
Yeah.
That's a very generic piece. But I'm saying, outside of light-hearted comedy, situational comedy, at a sustainable level, what is your audience getting from you is something you have to have at the back of your mind. I may love street fashion and I may be lucky to be a South Bombay, South Delhi kid who has lots of money and I can showcase a new sneaker every week. That's great. But am I giving something to my audience of what they can take away? Am I telling my audience, this is where you can cop the best sneakers? Or am I telling my audience, here's how you can build a cool sneaker resale business? Or am I telling my audience a little bit about the history of each sneaker that makes them a little smarter? Are you either making them smarter? Are you either making them happier? Are you either giving them something to think? And most importantly, and this is something I've learned recently, are you giving them something that they want to share? The power of community within content today, the shareability in content today, and you know this because we're seeing this with Meta, for example, today, right?
Yeah.
Follower increase has become tremendously hard. Engagement increase is what everybody's looking at. So Meta themselves are sitting and saying, भाई आप भूल जाओ कि आप आज थे 100,000 पे आप content तोड़ के बनाओगे 6 महीने आप 500,000 पहुंच जाओगे. Very hard. आपकी engagement will become the critical measure. So I think that to answer your question, first of all, there has to be passion. You got to enjoy doing what you're doing. Don't try to make it a business overnight, etc., etc.
Yeah.
You have a story to tell. You have something you want to get out there and do, and you want to make it meaningful. Do it by all means. But if you want to do it seriously, if you want to build a community, if you want to monetize, if you want to create genuine influence, and you want to better your subject matter expertise, you have to know. You have to think about what am I giving, and you have to think about when I'm giving it, is it something that I'm giving that people want to share? I think if you keep both of those things in mind, you will automatically start having a lens of, oh, I think this is useful content. And that comes from research, that comes from talking to people, that comes from people actually feeling like, wow, there's something here. And can it happen without that? Can I just do random BC content and just have fun with it? Of course you can. But is it compounding? Is it going to be something people are going to come back to? That is something which is, I think, a very critical point that you have to really, really think about. But what's the most powerful things about memes? It's not that it's making you laugh. It's the shareability, Ayush.
True.
That is the fun.
Yeah,
How many
yeah.
jokes do we see कि bro भाई तो वो है जो सुबह 10 मीम भेजे. क्या मतलब है उसका? उस चीज में इंसाइट है.
Yeah,
उसकी इंसाइट ये है कि मीम बनाने वाला बहुत क्लियर है.
हाँ.
मीम बनाने वाले की सबसे बड़ी ताकत ये है कि जो वो बना रहा है ना, उसको लग रहा है कि वो जो बकचोद गैंग है ना, pardon me and pardon my language, वो ग्रुप में फैलेगा. That is the scientific marketing insight.
Yeah.
That is what you can learn and be like, bro, यहाँ पे कुछ है जो बंदे को समझ आए कि ये ना वो बंदों के ग्रुप में बातें चल रही है. Forget बंदे हो, अंकल्स के ग्रुप में बात चल रही है. Because memes are now for all languages. That's the insight. That's what I'd love to look at a creator, that what is it that you're doing that gives you that slight edge into what you're creating. And if I look at our talent roster today, I'm very proud to say that there's a lot of people there I think have really, really cracked that code in that niche, and those that I think have not are very clear that they're on the journey to doing it. And it's our job to also help them get to that point.
Yeah. I think you covered it up very nicely. And so again, you mentioned most of the creators, and because I have worked a little bit with you and I've seen the creators that you have very relevant creators. And one factors of relevance you've already mentioned with this.
Yeah.
But what is that pattern that you see in content which keeps you relevant? We also discussed like so many creators who go irrelevant. One is depth नहीं है. अगर आपके पास depth नहीं है, आप like 1 week wonder or 1 month wonder or 2 month wonder, right?
Correct.
And then if your content is not shareable, it's not actionable, it's not up to date, it's not evolving as compared to the world, then you are irrelevant.
Yeah.
ये दो चीजें हैं. What beyond this do you think?
So I like to find people who are subject matter experts, understand the digital ecosystem and understand their audience base, want to go deep and want to be the absolute damn best at what they do. My job is to come in and give them all the structure and ecosystem so that they can focus on the creativity and their subject matter expertise, and I can build the institution. That's what I like to see, right? And it doesn't like we have India's number one wellness creator. We have India's number one, young cutting edge designer in graphics, etc. We have a lot of these amazing people, but there's also people who are just creating amazing content for Gen Z. They're not in any width, but the fact is today, the reason why I gravitate towards those people is that that's where a lot of the consumerism is sitting. That's where a lot of the engagement is sitting. Now it's my job to look at some of them and be like, here's your area. What can you go deeper?
So even with like I was gonna ask you, how do small creator monetize, and I'll give you like my 2 cents on it, and you actually covered it in a way.
Yeah.
Is that there are a lot of creators who become creators again from, like we were talking about the FOMO driven creators here. They become creators because they feel the brand money is great, and I'll make like multiple lakhs every month, etc. But what they don't realize, and we are also trying to figure a way out with brands and like other services, is that these creators who have some kind of expertise in a niche, let's say a lawyer or like a writer, like a 50,000 followers, 30,000 followers, 60,000 followers, they're very valuable in their own, in their own sense. Like one of my creator friends that I know of, she's like a 22-year-old girl who extremely passionate about writing, has been trying to create content on writing and all that since 2 years, never grew past 40,000 followers.
Right.
Always in FOMO.
Right.
And I was having a conversation, I told her, why don't you just like flip it and like build a service business around it? And now she writes LinkedIn ghostwriting service and all that. And now she's making 2.5 lakhs per month while being in college.
Amazing.
And she's not dependent upon brands also to
That's
like
amazing.
fund her,
That's
you know.
amazing.
And that's one way of like it's almost as if you're not a creator, you're a business who's using content creation as a method of marketing at zero CAC. And that's I think what I feel the future of small creators or mini creators or creators who don't have like ambitions to become actors or like that is gonna be. But what have you seen the pattern?
No, I mean that's such a superb example. I think you're absolutely right. I think when you identify your subject matter expertise, right? I think what's very critical for all of us, now when I say all of us, I'm including you and me in it, Ayush, is that when we're advising, we have to break the non-linear way of thinking. If you are a creator that is an interior designer, the standard linear thought is let's go after architect companies, let's go after interior design companies, let's talk to wallpapers, let's go talk to Asian paints, because that's where it'll go.
Yeah.
The truth of the matter is that you have to break out of that mold and look a lot wider, because the need for that service may not be something that's overt. It could be something that's layered, but is still a very critical service. The standard format could be that I'm an interior designer, right? I have, let's say, for example, I'm thinking that Asian paints would be wonderful for me to go and collaborate with, because I know what wallpaper should be used for a room. That's a standard pitch that we'll go out and make, and we'll talk to every paint brand. I'm going one level deeper when I'm saying, leave that out for a second. I would go and find out which are the consulting organizations or which are the agencies that are servicing Asian paints. And I would go to them and say, I want to offer you marketing insight of how customers are looking at my design. And I want to give you a certain insight into which colors are working, what kind of patterns are working, which cities am I getting the most amount of inquiries coming from. This is all data which is extremely useful. And you know,
primary research.
Companies spend lakhs and lakhs to get this research that creators who have even built 50,000 following
very true
can get in 5 minutes of one question that they put up, but nobody knows how to monetize that. I believe the future of a lot of creators, you've actually given the perfect example, is actually going to be in consulting. If you build a great research business around you, you build a great consulting advisory business around you, you will be amazed. And dude, consulting is great money. It's fucking amazing money, right?
All the BCCs of the world.
Absolutely. So I'm just saying that is where the future is. But you have to build it a little intelligently. You have to build a team. You have to have a little bit of research. And in the initial stages, that's to all be you. But once you build a few clients, that's a beautiful way to work. Right? Because, and now apply this same idea to any subject matter expertise. Beauty, fashion, travel, auto, every single thing. You have a certain pulse of what is working, and you have an audience that wants to interact with you and come back to you. You know what's amazing, Ayush? Do you know that in the largest research companies in the world, do you know what is considered a large data set of primary research? Let's assume you're doing a research. Take a wild guess what companies get excited by if they see कि आपने इन इतने लोगों से बात करी.
500.
Bro, 250 people if you take a research for ना and say 250 लोगों ने सर्वे भरा है, ये मेरा insight है. कंपनियां बैकफ्लिप्स कर रही है. वाओ, आपने क्या रिसर्च निकाल लिया. What the fuck is 250 people? Compare that to a creator. Now, a creator may not be able to get 40 questions answered, but if they're really amazing at what they do, they can get 15 questions answered and get research from 10,000 people.
True.
That is powerful. That is what this is democratized. So I would advise a lot of young people, exactly like the example you gave, think about how your expertise can be in service, and see, you've got to go a little deeper. You've got to go a little bit into more depth of what is happening in the world around you. And that's why reading the business magazines, reading the newspapers, following the right things, the biggest strength in the world is not going to be access to information. The strength in the world is going to be how are you connecting the dots.
Yes.
That is going to be the real power, right? Because data तो सबके पास होने वाला है. वो उसको extrapolate करके निकालना कि इसका idea क्या होगा. Again, beautiful part about what I was saying earlier, where access to talk to those people is not there. You have a great idea and you put it out there and you say, I would want to offer this service. LinkedIn में 50 लोग आके बोलेंगे, भाई, this is super exciting, आप आके करके दो मिलिए. again, as opposed to when I started in the business, 2008, right? Companies were known for doing what companies are supposed to do. Nestle will make coffee, Nestle will make chocolates, Nestle will make milk powder, Nestle will cater to mothers. एक this thing है. Bro, आज की date में, you look at the companies that have started up, you'll think that Ola is just a ride-hailing company. But when did you ever think Ola is going to make their own scooter? Like, who would have thought? Tell me, who would have fucking thought? The fact today is that any company can do anything they want. There is nobody who's going to sit and say कि आप यही करो. As long as it's building shareholder value, and as long as it's sitting in the larger ethos of Ola ultimately and Bhavesh ultimately want to better mobility for the country, right? He's going to do everything that comes to it. Tomorrow he might decide to start a GPS business. Now, let's go back. If you are a content creator, let's assume you're a content creator in travel. Let's assume you're an expert in मैं दिल्ली का क्रिएटर हूँ मुझे पता है कि दिल्ली में सबसे cool exciting चीज़ें what are the most amazing places to eat and shop at the same time. Super hyper niche, and I want to create content around that so that when you're a young couple or a young family, you know what to do in Delhi. Will you ever think that you'll be like, dude, I can use Ola to ride hail to where I want to go, but you may have a conversation with them and they'll be like, listen, this capability of yours, we want to map in our new scooter's GPS system, and we want you to be the face and the researcher and the input into that particular content. Please come and work with our team. सोच में भी नहीं आएगा, but हमें ऐसा सोचना पड़ेगा उनके लिए, and people have to connect those dots as well. So basically my point is, as a creator, don't ever worry about thinking only in a straight line laterally. Your capability and skill can be broad based to multiple ecosystems, as long as you are very clear of what you're trying to build and the fundamentals don't change. You have to build distribution. You have to build a loyal audience. Even that's that powerful 1,000% rule, right? Are there 1,000 people that will do what I ask them to do? Just build these two things to start off with. Once you have that, and once you're consistently communicating and looking at my only other worry about the creator economy, right, is that, and this applies to everybody, is don't get lost in your own bubble. There's a massive world out there. आपका Instagram, आपका YouTube और आपका echo chamber is your worst enemy. Use that as your protection layer. कि और कुछ फट गया ना मेरे पास वो है. Don't use that as your growth layer. Your growth layer sits outside of that comfort zone. So your inner circle should protect you, but your inner circle will hold you back on growth because that's all you're hearing. You'll have to go beyond your inner circle to grow and understand world में क्या हो रहा है. Put yourself out there, meet industry experts, create mentors, understand the world, push yourself to understand the world well beyond what you're doing in short, measurable ways. You have no idea what business opportunities can open.
Very well framed in a first principle way भी अगर मैं देखूँ, I try to think things like that कि, but आपने बहुत अच्छे से बताया, वो consulting वाला example भी बहुत अच्छा था. Like Revant was here a couple of weeks ago on the show as well, and he also brought this up that primary research करो and उसके हिसाब से product बनाओ, देखो कितना चलता है. He being from a consulting background himself, I think just tells you that as creators or like whatever niche you are in, just realize there's so much power you hold which can be monetized beyond just the brand deals aspect of it or building around the media aspect of it. The opportunity in the business front is so much more than what you're already doing in a, and that bubble actually is toxicating because you're like, अरे मेरे पास बस यही है, because आप बस वो bubble में सोच रहे हो, think out of the box नहीं कर रहे हो. जैसे आपने बताया first principles में आप सोच रहे हो, वो अगर आप कर लो तो मतलब even I am thinking कि wow, there's so much more that can be done.
And I'll ask you this, right, because you work with inarguably probably the best example of a creator who's taken finance and built an enterprise around it, right? My other thing is that, and I know this is easier said than done, but I feel that if creators find a right vibe and a right match with entrepreneurs, founders, businesses, where there's a mutual respect and there's a mutual desire to develop, I really encourage creators to break the conventional norm of how a transaction takes place. आप मेरे को पे करो, मैं आपके लिए रील बनाऊंगा ना, वो तो रोजी रोटी के लिए चाहिए. But how much of that, if it's 100% pie, how much of that pie can you make into, भाई मैं आपके लिए करूंगा, but reward me on outcomes, reward me on success. If I'm able to drive something for your business, I want a better piece of the pie. I was just watching that clip from Air, right? That beautiful line where Viola Davis, who plays Michael Jordan's mom, tells Matt Damon's character, that you eat, I eat. That's what creators should be telling businesses today.
Yeah.
कि आप मेरे बैक पे कुछ बना रहे हो ना, छोटा सा भी हो, आप भी खा रहे हो ना, तो मुझे भी थोड़ा सा दो खाने के लिए.
Correct.
Let it not just be a transaction. The more creators, and this doesn't mean you have to start your own business. This can just mean people have made this into that fuck all, this affiliate marketing and live commerce and all. Yaar, wo na, that's really commoditizing the business. I'm literally saying, if I'm working for you as a brand, and if I was, let's say, to be paid 100 rupees, pay me 80. But that 20 का जो मैं काम करता हूँ ना, give me an upside if you meet your business. Let that 20 become 40 if you meet your business outcomes. So if I would have made 100, I'm making 120.
Yeah.
Which business will say no to that?
Correct.
Every business owner will be like, bro, he's willing to put his money on the table. He's willing to put his mouth on the table and say, I'm willing to work for you for your successes. But if you're successful through something I have done, I want a piece of that pie.
Yeah.
The measurability of that is very important, but today those measurabilities are becoming better and better. I want to encourage more and more creators to think entrepreneurially.
Yes.
Right now, the entrepreneurial thinking is only on creativity. मैं सब कुछ करूँगा, मैं script करूँगा, मैं बनाऊँगा, मैं produce करूँगा, मैं बाहर जाऊँगा. That's great. Also think entrepreneurially from a business perspective, and that's where you and me come in.
Yeah.
That's where we have to advise our guys to do it, and not all businesses and founders get it, but the ones who get it really cherish them and encourage them to make more of these models, because when those models become successful, they'll become broad based.
Correct.
वो फट जाएगा. जिस दिन एक क्रिएटर ने आके बोला ना कि मैंने अपना स्टैंडर्ड फी छोड़ दिया और मैं सिर्फ बिजनेस सक्सेस पे आया और उसका बिजनेस में यहाँ से वहां लेके गया, वो फट जाएगा. कोई नहीं कर सकता ना ऐसे. कोई नहीं कर सकता, बिकॉज तुमने सब कुछ कर, बिकॉज the economics of working with a creator are still too powerful. You still have a one-man army or a one-woman army getting it done for you. That's incredible. You can't challenge that. But if it becomes something which is giving business upside, I'm a big believer that will create fantastic outcomes for both the creator and the business. And that's what we have to do.
2 years ago, influence marketing or like engaging with creators per se was more or less a startup thing.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't spend so much money on an IPA or like a TV ad. So they'd go to performance marketing.
Yeah.
Or they would now slowly get into influence marketing, which is a cool thing back in 2021, 2022. Now it's like a BAU thing.
Yeah.
But a lot of FMCG brands, the big brands, the legacy brands are slowly coming into the picture as well of the creators. And I personally feel there's a big gap. Like every time I have to educate every brand that, no, yaar, this is not performance marketing, this is branding, this is different. Like every campaign is different. Like not every campaign, like for example, if you spend 100 rupees on a creator, don't expect like performance marketing getting 150 rupees back.
Correct.
And then later telling me, oh, this is such a horrible campaign. That's that's a basic thing that brands need to understand. And there's a big gap I still feel there is. Legacy brands also, I don't know why they're coming. They probably, like fashion, for a fact that I know that they spend across the year on creators, and I think they understand branding and they understand recall value. They're not very rigid ki bhai, creator ko humne lakh rupees dete, she's not giving us revenue and all that. But what is the trend that you are seeing at your end?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, Ayush. I think that it's very important for us as advisors to brands to, again, not paint all brands with the same brush. I'll give you an example, right? You've got to get into the little bit of the fundamentals of the brand when it comes to what are the unit economics of that brand. So let's assume I'm an entry level shampoo, and the margins on my sale of a product that I'm selling, which is, let's say I'm selling a 100 rupee product, my margins after I sell that product could be a very tiny margin. The truth of the matter is I'm looking for very efficacious solutions, because मैं brand जितना भी बड़ा बना लूँ, मेरा ultimate goal तो volume है. तो अगर मैं volume पे खेल रहा हूँ, मेरे लिए retail और important है, मेरे लिए distribution और important है, मेरे लिए किराना स्टोर में करना बहुत important है. वहाँ पे जाके मैं तोड़ के बोलूँगा influencer लो, मेरा कोई value नहीं है वहाँ पे. You said a great example of fashion. Why does fashion work? Because fashion works on aspiration. Fashion works on brand. We wear clothes because they say something about us. So it makes a very big impact on popular culture driving fashion trends. Same, it works beautifully in beauty. Why? Because beauty is something that we aspire for, right? We look a certain way, our complexion looks a certain way. If we're a woman or a man, and if we're wearing lipstick or certain makeup, it's a value add. So hence, creators and inspiration and influence has a big impact on your role. But if you look at traditional hardcore FMCG, right, you have to be a little smarter and say, what is the impact that's going to come for this brand if the unit economics don't make sense? So I'll take your question one by one. First of all, legacy brands, I think it's a great thing. I think legacy brands are going to enter more and more into influencer marketing. and creator economy partnerships. I don't think just influencer marketing, I think creator economy partnerships as a whole. But you have to understand what is lacking right now in the business now, Ayush, is that management and marketing principles are now 300, 400 years in the making. If you come in and say, I want to build a brand, you'll have concepts like 5 P's and this principle and that principle, and those fundamentals work even today. But when you come in and say, what are the principles of intelligent influencer-led content marketing? There's no playbook. Nobody's getting trained that in B schools. The best brand managers are coming from that system. What are they learning? They're probably just figuring things out as they go along. They're looking at case studies, and if you've studied that case study in 22, with all honesty, by 2024, 25, it's already old. Because that system has changed.
True.
Maybe you're making that case study on Snapchat, but bro, Snapchat का अभी वो program ही बंद हो गया है.
Correct.
तो फिर क्या करोगे तुम उसका?
Correct.
So what that means, right, is that I believe as advisors to brands, we have to work a lot on creating systems within which they can get output. So what you were saying कि आपने इतना पैसा डाला performance पे या influencer पे, आपको performance level impact चाहिए. उसका अगर कोई framework है, जैसे let me give you an example. There's a very interesting system that existed when we used to do I used to do hardcore endorsement sales, where I used to advise a brand and say, if you're going to spend X on a celebrity, if you don't have a minimum of, and this is before digital, if you don't have a minimum of 7 to 8x to spend on media on that celebrity, don't take that celebrity. If you're spending 50 lakhs on a celebrity and if you don't have 3.5 to 4 crores on media, don't take that celebrity because it will be a waste for you. आपको ROI नहीं आएगा because किसी को पता नहीं चलेगा कि आपका celebrity brand चल रहा है.
Correct.
Right?
Very
और
true.
आप उस पर अच्छा प्रोडक्शन करो, अच्छा कंटेंट क्रिएट करो. Content that time was TVC, print, hoarding, outdoor, one event, one dealer meet. You had a whole structure around it, but you have to have money to spend and amplify. Today that number has gone down because you get better bang for your buck on digital. So today I'll tell a brand, you should have at least 3 to 5x to spend on a celebrity because you can attribute a lot of that to digital marketing. But I'm saying, are there systems and structures like that in digital, especially around content influencers, where you can present to a brand head or a marketing and say, see, here's a playbook.
Yeah.
If you want to achieve this for your brand, you have a launch, you have a new product development, you have a relaunch, you have a sale. Each one of those have a different outcome that you want. Are there systems for each of them? And I don't think all of us, and I think we're also working on it, have enough of those systems to offer to brands. Because understand, Ayush, going back to my earlier point, it's a fucking tough job to be a brand manager today. The risk-taking ability in the brand manager, I'll tell you one more thing, the difference between 2008 between 2008 and today is I find marketing heads have no risk-taking ability. Zero.
Today?
I don't see it. Let me clarify. From the legacy brands. I don't see it. And I don't blame them. Because the pressure on margins, the pressure on profitability, the pressure on... And you can only do really great path-breaking work if you take a risk. And that risk can actually end up backfiring. That risk can actually end up being, dude, I don't know if this will impact sale, but hundreds of thousands of people will look at my brand differently, which will then impact the way they get back into the consumer's mindset, right? वो risk taking ability में देखा है कितना limited हो गया है यार, और किसी गलती नहीं है. That's the nature of the world around us. So when a brand manager is looking at just his next quarter results, of course he's going to ride your ass hard to figure out what the performance marketing output is. He's not going to be able to sit and look at इसमें brand का क्या है. And the other challenge is now, Ayush, that the size, the data set that people want outcomes for. Somebody will invest 5 lakhs and they want to see a case study of how this has impacted their brand. I'm like, bro, kaise? But it's not a large enough case study to build. Does the system work? Is the tonality correct? Are you finding the right fit for the creators? When all those things come together, that you can test in $10,000. But in $10,000, you're not going to be able to change the world no matter who you are. You have to do it consistently.
Correct.
So my input to my teams and whenever I sit in is that try to think of solutions which can potentially become long-term solutions. Right? That's the only way people are going to consistently come back. So it's a very, very tough time. Let me tell you, I think that we're in a interesting inflection point in influencer marketing where we could start having more and more questions coming about efficacy. Because right now it's all about finding the right trend and piggybacking on it and making it work. I think we need more sustainable case studies which show that हमने brand को long-term growth के साथ किया है. But with an industry this young, those are still being made. But that's really my POV when it comes to brands, honestly.
Yeah, I think I always think why is a brand spending 1,000 crore marketing budget, like with a 1,000 crore marketing budget, spending what 5 crores on influencers.
Right.
And the answer would usually that I have gotten into is that performance marketing, you can track the data. You can track if I've spent X money, this is the X ROI that I've gotten. Billboards technically you cannot, but they put it in the branding budget, and it's an old practice going on of sorts. Influencer is still that one thing wherein, you know, it's like, as you mentioned, like you don't know if it's gonna give you result. And case studies, you can show the case studies, but it's not tailor solution made for like that brand who have that confidence. Okay, I'll put in unlimited money. Like a lot of brands spend 10 lakhs, 15 lakhs with us. It's like a 50-50. They'll come back or they'll not. It's just that right now. That's what I've seen.
My only advice in those situations would be hardcore expectation setting and getting the brand to understand that this is not some magic wand.
Yeah.
Right? You're gonna have to come in and you're gonna have to build on this, and the outcomes are going to be very specific, under promise, over deliver. And I mean, I'm getting a little granular, but I believe that there's a very powerful marriage between influencer and performance marketing.
Yeah.
I think if you bring the two together in a very powerful way, you can really achieve incredible results. And you'll see some, and I'm sure you've seen this, brands have done that, they've got great outcomes from what they want to do. But somebody has to be a data scientist on our side to be able to crack that model for them.
Yeah.
And that's the business challenge. That am I going to invest that much time and effort to extract value in such a small ticket size? And that's the power of building any business which is offering advisory solutions, right? Which bets do you take with brands that will go along with you? How do you expend it? And it's our job to really work hard at that, because that's going to grow the creator economy. The moment brands can sit and say, bro, this is a tangible, outcome-oriented approach. That outcome could give, maybe television gives you 3x return. Maybe influencer marketing gives you 1.5x return. But the moment you can say, yes, if I do it right, this is the kind of structure that can work for me, we are on our way to building even, I mean, we're already, creator marketing, influencer marketing is already on its tremendous way up, right?
Yeah.
All the signs are correct. Also, the signs are correct because so many companies are still entering the influencer marketing and creator marketing ecosystem.
Yeah.
There are so many hundreds of companies, thousands of companies that are waiting to be tapped, right? And the existing companies, more budgets to be going there as well. But it'll all come with the right advice. It won't just come with one influencer list and ये लो इसके पैसे हैं भाई, वो तो कुछ नहीं होने वाला उसका. वो जो लोग कर रहे हैं उनको तो उनका टाइम आ रहा है. Time आ रहा है.
To do that, like, just to touch upon the performance plus influencer plan, I think fortunately we were one of the early movers when it comes to this trend, and a lot of our fintech brands, even like for example Sharan for that matter, if you break down what he did correct, is that he is a creator who has immense face value. Now he merged that with his own performance marketing for his own brand.
Correct.
Run that on steroids, and then you're seeing the results that you're seeing when it comes to his company, right? And a lot more brands are doing that. Like, brands come to us like, हमें एक reel चाहिए, 2 reel चाहिए, उसके साथ हम बोलते हैं performance marketing करो. Then we show them the case study that we did with X brand, Y brand, Z brand, and it's doing bonkers because you are getting a face value and you're not getting the restriction of the limited reach. You're able to push it to as many people as possible, and you're getting the higher CTR, lower CPM, right? And that's what we're also
what
trying
you
to do.
just described in like 10 seconds is actually a system. What we have to do is, whether we like it or not, that system has to be packaged very intelligently and made into a product. We've not productized creator influencer marketing intelligently as an industry as yet. We have to productize smarter and smarter with all the tools, because you go to any of the legacy formats, it's all productized. There's an approach to how you buy on television. There's an approach to how you buy on billboards. Now they have 40 years ahead of us, but it's system hai na.
Makes sense.
Rate cards hai, now we're dealing with human beings. So rate cards, etc. won't work. But all the data, all the science that goes behind it, those structures are very important. And I think that's the way it has to grow, man.
For that. Cool. Final rapid fire
my God.
with DC. I know it has no badminton questions here. First is one thing people don't know about the celebrity world.
It's not as glamorous as you think.
Elevator pitch to a celebrity to get onboarded with you.
We're here to empower your dreams. If you want a team that's going to work when you sleep and fight for more than what you can fight for yourself, there's only one place to come, and that's Collective.
One secret to keep your team members happy.
Listen.
Your success mantra.
Balance.
One message to your competitors.
Oh, I don't have any competition.
Easiest way to convince Dhruv to do something is.
Oh, listen.
Alright, thanks, bro. That was
Amazing,
awesome.
amazing, superb.
Alright, guys, thank you so much for watching this podcast. I hope you gained a lot of insights into the celebrity functioning, into the creator economy, and how fundamentals of business in the media industry work. If you enjoyed this conversation, you might enjoy these two podcasts as well around the media industry. I'll see you in the next one.